welcome to another edition of Q&A with Coach Live. Now, I've had some technical difficulties getting on here. Specifically, my laptop computer is not booting up, and I can't figure it out, so I'm watching this through the phone. This is going to be a little difficult to read some of your questions, so please be patient with me because I see them in very small boxes on a very small screen. So let's see how this goes. Hold on. Nope. Okay, looks like we're in business. I think I can see your questions now. Please let me know if you can hear what I am saying. Steve Fox wants me to say, what do I think about the Netherlands? I've never been there. I really don't know anything about it. I've met some folks from there. Let me know if you can hear me. Am I coming through clear? You can hear, okay? Good. Great. Well, we are in business. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. So if you have questions, just leave them in the comments down below. And let's talk about it. How do you train at home? You train at home. There are all kinds of things you can do at home, all kinds of things you can't, but yeah, man, I did training at home. I've been training at home for about a month now since we're locked in here in China. We can't go outside. Did a bunch of burpees and sprawls and jumps and break falls and worked out with some dumbbells and lifted my kids up over my head and stuff like that. So I was shadow box. You can shadow wrestle. Really, space is the limiting factor. So use your imagination. Do something to get stronger. Do something to get more flexible. Do something to get more technical every day. Tips on solo wrestling practice. Got a whole video on that. Shadow wrestling. Go look that one up. It's a good video. Got a lot of tips on that one. Go watch it, please. What do I do for a living? I'm a coach of combat sports athletes. That's what I do for a living. Welcome to the channel. What else? Let's see here. Dave Stewart wants to know what is being done in an effort to ease the food shortage in China. Nothing that I'm aware of, man. In fact, man, I saw one of the most interesting videos I've seen in a long time of some folks in this big old warehouse with tons of food, literally throwing it away. Just throwing it into dumpsters. So, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the reason for that was, but yeah, a lot of food is being thrown away. It's not so much that there is a food shortage, it's that the food is not being distributed to those who need it. There's an important difference there. So, if you have questions about technique, you got questions about coaching, training, etc., great. If you got questions about China, what's going on there, what happened to my thumb right here, feel free to ask anything. Our friend Lot wants to know, how can we face fear? Well, that's an interesting question. Accept the fact that you're afraid, you're gonna be afraid. And you do what needs to be done regardless of the fact that you're afraid. Quite simple. What happened to my thumb? I almost chopped it off with a meat cleaver, actually. I was cooking. And I was chopping up an onion, and I was holding the onion, and the blade slipped, and it almost severed my thumb, but not quite. Went through the thumbnail, chopped it in half, and didn't quite get to the bone. I'm okay, but it's going to take a little while for that to heal completely. So that's what happened to my thumb. Richard wants to know, ¿puedes responder esto en español? Sí, podría responder en español. Si ustedes tienen preguntas en español, pregúntanme, por favor. Or English, that's fine too. Tyson just punched some guy in the plan. That's great. I love that. How much do you deadlift? Frequently. Well, actually, I did some deadlifts today with dumbbells. I do have a dumbbell set at home. So we're not able to leave our apartments, but I'm pretty well outfitted here with dumbbells. So today I was deadlifting 50 kilos because that's what I've got in dumbbells. But I generally max out around 180 kilos. So it's not like a super impressive deadlift, but I'll take it. If you can deadlift more than the person that you are fighting, and you can do it consistently, that's good. All right, what else do we have? In general, how are you and your family doing with the lockdown? Not a whole lot is going on. Basically, we stay at home every day. My kids have online school every day. They're not big fans. I am spending a ton of my time helping my kids with their homework, with their math, and kind of funny story. My daughter had a story problem for mathematics, and I think there were some unintentional errors there, which turned what should have been a very simple arithmetic story problem into a complex algebraic equation. Man. And we went on a tangent that day. How would a square cage affect fighting in MMA? That's an interesting question. If there was a square cage or a rectangular cage, then the corners would become death traps, basically. If you could get a fighter to back up into a corner, that would be kind of a big deal. It would be a big deal in boxing with a square ring, but it is easier to slide out because the ropes have some give to them. A cage doesn't. So you can go into a turnbuckle and you can slide out around the corner, but you can't do that in a cage if there were a square cage. I did see one MMA event that had a square cage. There's probably more than one because you might not know this, but the UFC actually has a trademark on octagonal shaped cages. No other fight promotion is allowed to use an actual octagon. So if you look at other fight promotions, they generally have a 6-sided cage or a round cage or some other number of sides to the cage, but it can't be 8 sides, thanks to the UFC. Richard is asking, what is Richard asking? His question faded away before I could read it. Come back, Richard. I wanted to read your Spanish question. Hold on. Where'd you go, Richard? I don't know, man. I'll be looking for you, Richard. Maybe repeat that question and we can find it later. But we do have a super chat from Spiral Eye who has no question. He just sent a donation. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it. What else do we have? Could I make a video on Spanish martial arts? Ooh. That's an interesting question. Study the historical martial arts of Spain. Probably a lot of sword fighting, but if you dig deeper, there's probably more than that. But I don't know, man. That's a good question. There have been tons of wars that have taken place in Spain and tons of influences from a bunch of different cultures, from the Ottoman Empire, from the Celts, from the Iberians, from the Celtiberians, even the Phoenicians back in ancient times. So, yeah, man, it's a big mix of martial cultures there. But it is interesting. Nobody really thinks of martial arts from Spain specifically, but there probably are some. I'm going to look into that. So that's an interesting question. All right, what else do we have? A fellow with a Greek name says, "Hey man, I wanted to apologize for the comment I did the other day. It was insensitive and rude. I don't remember the comment, but man, I appreciate you owning up to it. That's what a man does. He owns up to his mistakes. Appreciate it, brother." What else do we have? Water under the bridge, man. Water under the bridge. Don't hold grudges. Not one bit. David Stewart wants to know, as a martial artist, should I be in a cut, bulk, or main gaining type of phase like a bodybuilder? Well, it's a different thing than bodybuilding. In bodybuilding, they're always bulking up or cutting down for a competition because they're trying to look a certain way, and martial arts has nothing to do with aesthetics unless you are a forms competitor, and really, even then, they're not looking at muscle striations because generally you're doing forms in a uniform. They're not looking at the vascularity of your body. So that doesn't really matter. You want to have a physique that works for you. All right, we got a couple of super chats here. Killer Bead01 says, "Just wanted to thank you for the tip. You have me a while back on exhaling as I move. You fixed the issue I had gassing out in sparring. Many told me to run more. Thanks again." Oh man, if you didn't get that tip or you don't know what I'm talking about, man, everybody gasses out when they start. And it's not because they have bad cardio, because a lot of actually really otherwise great athletes gas out when they start doing combat sports, when they spar for the first time. It's like they're breathing swamp water. Why? It's because they're not familiar with the breathing patterns of combat, which is different from the breathing patterns of running or jogging or swimming or any of these other activities. So, a very simple fix: breathe the way you want to move. Exhale with your movement. Focus on your exhaling, not your inhaling. And that's going to make a world of difference if you feel like you've got bad cardio for fighting. We got another super chat from Global Product and Gaming Review, who says, "What would you do if you were challenged to a full contact fight?" I've had a few of those in my day, but what else does he say? "What if the person tries to say, 'Are you afraid you were going to lose or win?'" Now, are we talking about a professional fight? Like a cage fight, an MMA fight, a kickboxing match, a boxing match? I mean, I've done a bunch of those. But are we talking about some sort of street fight? Some rando in a parking lot is like, "Hey, buddy, I want to fight you. You yellow, you chicken. Come on, fight me. Show me you're a man." If that was the case, I'd be like, "No, I'm not getting paid for this crap. Bye. See ya." But as far as professional fighting, man, fighters talk smack to each other all the time to try to instigate fights sometimes. Generally happens over the internet to try to create hype for a fight, sell tickets, that sort of thing. Have I experienced some of that in the day? Yeah. Yeah. It's dumb, but it happens. All right, what else do we have? Was I ever interested in historic European martial arts? Sure. Yeah, man. That's fun stuff. Hima, man. People keep asking, what is my current training in lockdown? Basically, calisthenics, lifting some weights. I got some dumbbells, got some kettlebells, and yeah, playing with my kids a lot. We got a super chat from Bravely Spidey. Brave Little Spidey. Okay, Brave Little Spidey, who says, "Oops, wrong button. Or is it to help support the next Oblivion project?" There will be another one. My daughter and I have been working on some costumes. You might not know this, but we're nerds over here, and we got some crafting foam Before we've been working on making some costume, armor, and props and stuff for our next Elder Scrolls themed Oblivion parody thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, my daughter and I made some comedy films based on Elder Scrolls, so go check that out. The people who watched it really seemed to like it. So John Doe says, as you are getting older, what are you doing to help recover? I noticed the many 30 plus people have nagging minor injuries that take far longer than usual to recover from. Man, if you're injured, a bunch of reps of this exercise 5 years ago, I'm good. Just make rehab a way of life. Rehab and prehab, and that's, yeah, that is going to be the best way to go about it, man. Basically, just never stop moving, never stop training, and always find a way to train and always avoid the excuses not to. What else? How are 25 million people being locked down over a glorified cold, not just bum rushing all the tyrants? This is a complex and nuanced situation, man. Maybe we'll get back into that in a bit, but and then what? And then what? I addressed this question in my last video where I talked about the lockdown, but believe it or not, 25 million people are not all on the same page. They're not all united in their thinking and staging a coup against one of the world's greatest superpowers right now without an action plan for what happens ex post facto is not exactly smart. Some people think that, well, there was a revolution in the United States against Great Britain back in the 1700s, and they gained their independence and became a powerful sovereign nation. Why couldn't that happen elsewhere? Well, there are a bunch of reasons for that. The United States wasn't just it. It wasn't just a bunch of randos who got together and were like, oh, let's make it up on the spot. It was 13 different sovereign states, countries, essentially, with their own established governments, and then they just decided to cut the apron strings from Great Britain and maintain essentially the status quo with a few minor tweaks, and then unite their 13 governments into one overarching one. It's a radically different thing, man. Anyway, we got some super chats. It's a complex and nuanced situation is what I'm saying. JN says, making a living opening a gym in Japan or China, question mark? Well, I've never been to Japan. I do have a friend. He's been on my podcast before, lives in Japan, runs a gym in Japan, has a YouTube channel over there in Japan. Angelo. Man, what is Angelo's channel's name? I think it's called Social Jello with Angelo. Social, SOCIAL, Jello, GELO, not JELO, with Angelo. Go check that out. Ask him all your questions about running a gym in Japan. Right now, at this specific time, it's probably not the best time to think about opening up a gym in China. We got some issues to work through right now. But go check out Angelo. Bother him with your questions about opening a gym over there. But we got some other super chats here. What do we have? Global Product and Gaming Review says, I was talking about a challenge against you in your gym. Okay. If he was trying to provoke you, what would you do? And what would your feeling be? Dude, that's happened. I've had guys come into my gym, and I had a student. He had like zero ill intentions toward me. He just wanted to spar full contact with me. He was like, hey, let's have a fight. And I was like, okay, cool, let's fight. So we went at it in the ring, and we fought until I clipped him a little too hard. And he was like, okay, man, I've had enough. You know, he wanted to essentially feel what it was like going full contact and going hard. And as soon as he got that message, he was like, "Oh, okay. I realize now I need to take this in very limited doses rather than jumping right in." And I've had the experience of a lot of times a lot of new guys will come. And when I say new guys, I mean new to the gym. Often very experienced fighters will come to the gym, and sometimes when we spar, they will try to fight rather than spar, which is why I always make it a point to spar with the new guys first. And it's not uncommon that they try to murder me. And I'm pretty experienced at what I do, so it hasn't been a problem yet. Essentially, I'm the coach, but I'm also the gym enforcer. A lot of coaches have a strong, experienced guy and then do their dirty work for them and be the gym enforcer. But for the most part, I am my own gym enforcer. So it's working out so far. What else do we have? We got some more super chats. I think Blackwater Pete sends in a super chat and says, "Say more about aging and training, please. Approaching 40, I took a couple of years after a broken knee, and now it seems no matter how gradual I resume or slowly I warm up, I end up pulling something." Okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, man. Sounds like you need some rehab. Have you consulted a physical therapist? Because depending on the nature of the injury, I mean, I could prescribe a bunch of exercises for you over the internet, and they might not necessarily be the ones that will be most helpful to you. So go see a physical therapist about that, but make sure that the stretching and strengthening routines that you get from those sessions become lifelong habits. It is incredibly important to take care of yourself. Everybody understands that on an intellectual level. Take care of yourself. Yeah, eat well, exercise, whatever. But think about a cat for a minute. You ever seen a cat or owned a cat? I'm not a big cat person, but I had a bunch of cats when I was a kid. Our family had a bunch of cats crawling around the house, and cats are always moving. And they're always stretching. Like right before they go to sleep, they stretch out, they move their spine, and they get all the kinks out. And then they wake up, they do the same thing. And it's interesting how a cat has this routine. It's like this cat yoga routine that they go through to make sure that they are spry and capable and able to sprint and jump and pounce and do these incredibly athletic movements. And what are the cat moves of humans? What are our, wake up and do our stretches and movements and prep so that we can move athletically without getting hurt? Answer that question and make that a lifelong habit. And make sure it's something you're doing not just once in a while, but every single day. Do something that allows you to lead the kind of life that you need to athletically. All right, we got another super chat from B. Carr who says, "Hey Ramsey, I love the channel. Thank you. I was wondering if you could talk about getting over the fear or guilt about hitting someone. When I asked one of my gym mates, and he told me you either have it or you don't. What do you think?" Oh man, I did a whole podcast on the subject with my friend Andrew, and I cut out the specific clip. It's about a 40-minute clip of the podcast. I'd recommend watch this video because I talk at length about this and how I went through it and things that helped me. What is it called? The video is called Killer Instinct. Something about Killer Instinct. Look up Killer Instinct Ramsey Dewey. You'll find that. But yeah, you sent her the super chat, so let's get into detail right here because this is an important question. You're probably a nice guy, right? You're a civil person. You grew up in a civilized culture, and yeah, you feel bad about hitting people. It makes sense. Hurting people is not nice. Cage fights are not nice. Boxing matches are not nice. And it's not a nice thing to hurt somebody. It's not. If you stop and think about the long-term ramifications of knocking somebody out, especially somebody who is, on any other given day could be your best friend. After all, you share common interests like combat sports. It's kind of a messed up thing to do, right? But you have to understand, it's not a you have it or you don't sort of thing. Some people definitely have a proclivity to hurting other people. Man, my younger daughter certainly has a proclivity to trying to hurt her older sister. And holds back and holds her tongue and just sort of takes it because she's twice the size of the younger one, and the younger one just wants to be a rabble rouser. But you can definitely develop a killer instinct. You absolutely can. I mean, the militaries of this world invest billions of dollars into doing exactly that. Because most people are nice people and they don't want to kill and they don't want to hurt and they don't want to maim. So, what do you do about that? You condition yourself. You condition yourself to do the thing that you need to do. And there are lots of ways to do that. So, sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and hit the other dude. So I'll retell you that I told in that longer video. So I had this MMA fight, and I'd had a few MMA fights, but this was the first time I landed a really nasty elbow on somebody. Like a really nasty one. And I've got sharp hooks for elbows. I got some heavy elbows. So what did I do? I had the guy pinned up against the side of the cage and putting some pressure on him. He's reaching for the underhook, and something we trained extensively before this fight was countering somebody pummeling for the underhook with the elbow over the top, which is a great technique. He's pummeling for the underhook. My cornerman screams, elbow! And I do it instinctively, and I bash him right in the head. And I kind of felt bad about it because he gave me this look like, oh, that hurt. That wasn't cool, man. And I felt bad for about 2 seconds, and then I did it again, and again, and again, and again, because it was a fight. And in a fight, you fight. And it gets a lot easier when the other guy is hurting you. Some people say, I need to get hit a couple of times before I can wake up. And really what they mean by that is, I'm a nice guy and I don't like to hurt people who are no real threat to me. But as soon as they realize that other person is a legitimate threat, it feels okay to hit them back. So you got to condition yourself for it. Watch that video. Good luck to you, my friend. All right, what else do we have? Any other super chats I may have missed? Oh, several. All right, another question from Global Product and Gaming Review, who says, what part of the traditional martial arts such as karate, kenpo with an N, taekwondo, etc. can be used in a real fight? Well, it's not what part can be used in a real fight. It's because if you think about it, every single one of the techniques in the syllabus of taekwondo, pretty much every karate style, tang sudo, kenpo, whatever, can be used in a real fight. Kicks, punches, strikes of all kinds. Pummeling, hand fighting, grappling. That's all stuff that exists in real fights. What part of it can be used? It's the part that can't be used is the mindset of people who don't know how to fight, trying to teach people to fight. That's one of the big problems with traditional martial arts. It happens often. People who don't know how to fight, who've never been in a fight, who don't understand the reality of a fight, have no context of experience for real fighting, trying to teach people how to fight. And so, yeah, man, big problem. It reminds me of a question. I'm planning on making a video about this and going into this at length. Somebody was sent in this very long question. This lady wants to learn Tai Chi, but like combat Tai Chi, right? And she asked me, do you know anybody who teaches it? Now, I had the experience of meeting a master of Tai Chi Chuan who really knew how to fight, and we sparred, and this guy was good, but I learned some very important things there. Tai Chi Chuan is grappling. It's grappling, and everything that you will learn, everything important you will learn from the forms of Tai Chi Chuan, you will learn from a wrestling room, from jiu-jitsu, from judo, from the clinch fighting and sweeps of Muay Thai, all of that stuff. And you will learn it better in live combat sports. Why? If you want to learn how to fight, go to a gym where they teach you how to fight with coaches who know how to fight. So, more questions. Brian says, when you listen to Lex Friedman's podcast, do you do something else simultaneously, perhaps clean or exercise, or does it have your full attention? I usually wash the dishes when I listen to Lex's podcast. Thanks for the question. Got a super chat from SJ. Just a donation, no question. Thank you, my friend. What do I have? Man, so many questions. Any tips on transitioning from BJJ to MMA? TH asks. Yeah, first of all, get some of your BJJ friends, get some MMA gloves, and practice your BJJ with the MMA gloves on and give each other some light contact hits while you do it. And that's going to give you a whole bunch of light bulb moments. Now, there's a whole lot more to it than that. You got to learn the stand-up game. You got to learn the transitions and the takedowns and the clinch fighting game and everything else in between, all the glue that binds the techniques together. If you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, that is an excellent start. Just put on some MMA gloves and do some light contact, combat jiu-jitsu, if you will, with your jiu-jitsu training partners, and just give each other light contact punches while you roll. And yeah, that's going to be extremely game-changing for you. That is one of the best intros that a jiu-jitsu guy can have to the sport of mixed martial arts. But aside from that, yeah, work with a heavy bag, take some striking classes, start from the feet. This is super important. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, I don't know if you do, but a ton of jiu-jitsu gyms start on the ground. And, there are a bunch of reasons that people give for that. I don't like it. I like standing from the feet. Like, even in pure grappling, wrestling for the dominant position. And if I can't get it, get what you earn, right? Because that's more realistic. That's how fights happen. That makes you better. That makes you better at jockeying for position. So, yeah, graduate to MMA sparring. And of course, find some coaches who've done it before. And yeah, there we go. Question from Boxer, who says, Ramsey, why are you bald? I've got alopecia. Don't make me sick Will Smith on you to give you a slap for questioning my alopecia. That's just a fancy word for baldness, if you weren't aware. What else? Who would win, a boxer or a Kyokushin karateka? Whoever was the better fighter that day would win. How often do you train abs, says David Stewart? Every time I move. And you do too. Every time you move, you use your abdominal muscles. Anytime you breathe, you use your abdominal muscles. Anytime you talk, you use your abdominal muscles. Anytime you stand up, sit down, lift weights, do any type of exercise, you are using your abdominal muscles. Of course, there are certain exercises that use your abdominal muscles much more than others. Round kicks, for example, knees, any exercise where you lift your leg up off the ground is a great use of your abdominal muscles and a great way to train. It's not crunches and sit-ups. Although there are a bunch of great floor exercises that can strengthen your abdominal muscles. But anytime you move, you're using them. Super chat from Killer Bead01. How do you make the best use of hitting the heavy bag? Have a plan. Just make a simple plan about what you're going to do before you are hitting the heavy bag. And visualize. Visualize what is happening fight-wise while you're hitting the heavy bag. Visualize how a real person would move. Obviously, a heavy bag can't move like a real person, but you have to visualize it. The power visualization is one of the most important tools you will ever have. It's actually more important than a heavy bag. Much more important than a heavy bag, which is why shadow boxing in many ways is more important than bag work, if your visualization is correct. So have a goal before you hit the heavy bag. Give yourself drills, give yourself goals, give yourself sequences to rep out, give yourself footwork patterns to work on, and visualize the fight. Visualize how a real person would move relative to you as you hit it. I recently did a video review of one of my old videos that I recorded almost 20 years ago, put up on YouTube 14 years ago, of me hitting a heavy bag. And basically what I did, I would throw hard and fast flurries in front of the bag as fast as I could, feet with my feet planted to the floor, and then I would throw a couple of kicks, and then I would repeat that and do some sprawls and stuff like that. The big problem with that is the idea that you can throw a 17 hit combination even if you have Bruce Lee speed and the other guy's just going to sit there and take it. He won't. He's going to move. And so you have to move with him if you want to land any meaningful strikes. All right, we got a couple of super chats. Brian wants to know, can you move to the U.S. and adopt me? Huh. I'd have to talk to my wife about that because she says we're done having children. But we'll see, Brian. We'll see. Global Product Gaming Review sends in another super chat. Are you still improving as a fighter? Heck yes, man. And if you're not, fix that. But there's more to this question. If so, how? I get out there and train, man. I get out there and train and ask the right questions. But there's more to this question. What do you think? A person who wants to teach you new... What do I think of a new... I'm stuttering. What do you think of a person who wants to teach you new techniques? How do you stay humble? I love people who want to teach me new techniques, and I train with them all the time. And it's awesome. How do you stay humble? You stay realistic. You stay realistic about what a fight is. Because if you're not realistic about what a fight is, and you are doing anything that even closely resembles a fight, you're going to get hurt. So you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to let go of this idea that I'm complete, I'm good the way I am, because at any given moment in the fight game, somebody could kill you, man. Somebody could depose of you instantly, like that. So as I mentioned before, when we were talking about the potential for full contact fights breaking out in the gym, and I mentioned I'm the gym enforcer and the coach as well, I always spar first with everybody to make sure that they're all on the same page and nobody's going to try to kill the new guys. At any given moment, some guy could come in and have a bad attitude and try to murder me and be better than me. And so what do? I prepare for that contingency every day, because if not, people get hurt. Not just me, but everybody else in the class, everybody else on the mat has the potential of getting hurt because I didn't do my due diligence. So whatever motivation that you have to give yourself to get out there and train is the right one. So how do you stay humble, man? That's it. All right, we got another super chat from the Jughead1 who says, greetings to you, Ramsey, my brother. We love your content, bro. Hey, thank you. Keep it up. Love and respect to you from the UK, bro. Hey, thank you, man. Just kind words. Much appreciated. Not enough kind words in this world today, as the old song says. Let us oft speak kind words to each other. What do I think of? Kamzat Chimaev says, Jivesh, I don't apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name, but Jivesh says, what do you think of Kamzat Chimaev? Is he overtraining? He is back at the gym, war with Gilbert Burns. Kamzat Chimaev is super talented, man. Super talented guy, man. You probably saw his fight with Li Jingliang, and he just spanked him like a child, man. And Li is an amazing fighter. I've trained with Li Jingliang. I've sparred with him. Man, he's a very good fighter, man. And Kamzat just made him look like a child, like a dad just spanking his wayward child. But man, that was a good fight. That was a great fight with Gilbert Burns. It was super interesting to see Kamzat getting tested a bit, and yeah, it was fun to see a bit of a back and forth battle there. So yeah, Kamzat's a super talented fighter. I think he's gonna give us a bunch of great fights in the future. Is he overtraining? I don't know. I don't have any way of knowing that right now. I haven't been able to sit in on his training sessions, so I hope not. I hope not, because he's an exciting fighter. I want to see more of him. But unfortunately, a lot of young guys, in the pursuit of excellence, do too much too soon. So hopefully he doesn't fall into that trap. Okay, what other questions do we have? The Makiwara thoughts on possible knuckle damage. I'm asking for a friend. Yeah, I mean, if you connect wrong with a punch, you can damage something. Whether it's a Makiwara, a heavy bag, a brick wall, a skull, a person. If if your punch is off and you're not connecting quite right, yeah, there's always the possibility of injuring yourself. But here's something to think about. Not specifically about the makiwara, but punches, because how many times have you heard martial arts instructors, the so-called martial arts self-defense experts out there tell you not to punch in a fight? We're talking about like street fights specifically rather than sport fights, but don't punch in a self-defense situation because you might break your hands. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've seen thousands of fights. I participated in quite a few of them. I've been training for the art of fighting for a very, very long time, for most of my actually my entire adult life, and yeah, man, for decades and decades I've been doing this thing, and one thing I've learned, one thing I have observed, is that in the vast majority of fights, the person who won a boxing match, an MMA fight, whatever, any type of fight where punches are a possibility, the guy who punches more almost always wins. Take that into consideration. SJ says, don't get annoyed, chat peeps. I'm going to post it a couple more times. I think maybe he'll see me. Um, see what you were posting before, but I saw that part, so sorry I missed your repeated questioning. Maybe post it again a couple more times. We might see it at the annoyance of everybody else. What else do we have? Do I suggest learning Leglocks as a white belt? Mr. Baller asks. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. You should learn any attack that will be used against you. Why? Because if you don't know it, you don't know how to defend it. And if you don't know how to defend it, you're going to get hurt by it. So, to all those jiu-jitsu schools who say we should never start rolling from the feet because we might fall down and get a boo-boo because takedowns are dangerous, you're going to get hurt the first time somebody takes you down if you never experience falling down against your will. Similarly, with leg locks, if you don't train leg locks and you don't develop the sensitivity of when and where and why to tap, you're going to get hurt when you start rolling for real. As opposed to playing a game with a gentleman's agreement that, oh, we're not going to touch each other's feet because reasons. Leg locks are important, and believe it or not, some of them, even in the IBF with the most strict rules where everything is illegal, still allows certain leg locks at the white belt level. Yeah, the straight ankle lock is allowed at the white belt level. Hip locks are allowed at the white belt level. The electric chair submission is technically legal. The banana split, all spladles are technically legal at the white belt level, even though white belts are generally too incompetent to do that stuff. It's legal. But imagine for a minute, what if a couple of white belts got this crazy idea, hey, let's learn spladles and hip locks and the banana split and and the electric chair submission and these things and submitting people with it and really confusing the IBJJF refs who might be like, I've never seen this before in competition, but it's legal in IBJJF. So learn that stuff, man. Learn that stuff. It's really not that hard to get to those positions, man. You can get to those positions from back mount, from turtle, from mount, from half guard, from all kinds of places. So learn that stuff. But leg locks, yeah, learn them. Everybody's scared about the heel hook. Why? Now, when I say learn, I don't mean crank on them. Absolutely not. Learn how to control yourself when rolling with leg locks. Harry, the Greek guy, says leg locks were invented in Greece. Man, there's a great Greek carving of what is it, a centaur? One of those half horse, half man guys doing a heel hook on a dude, on an ancient Greek dude. So I'm not going to argue with you, Harry. I'm not going to argue with you. So, yeah, man. White belts, beginners definitely need to learn the leg lock game. Couple of super chats. Spiralize says, what is the most useful thing to do with upper body on a stationary bike? I have little dumbbells. Any hints or tricks would be awesome. That's a good question. Generally, when I ride a stationary bike, there's a gym across the road, a weights and treadmills gym right across the road from my apartment where I live. I go there sometimes because it's much, much closer than my combat sports gyms. So I go there to work out sometimes, and they've got stationary bikes, and I get on them. And I mean, you could pick up some weights and try to multitask, but generally, I just find that if I grip the handles in different positions, it forces me to use my leg muscles in different ways and my abdominal muscles in different ways. So practice different grips as opposed to trying to do an aerobics workout or whatever. Blackwater Pete has another super chat question. I bet you know a lot about dieting. I've been concerned about cognitive effects of long-term American high fructose diets. Please give Coach Dewey dietary rules with hard gainer tips too. Well, a good rule of thumb: if it doesn't grow out of the ground, if it doesn't grow out of the earth, if it doesn't have a mother, don't eat it. Don't eat it. If you cannot trace it back to something that has a mother or grows out of the earth in one or two easy steps, don't eat it. So that will immediately eliminate all the poison foods that you don't need. If it has a list of very scientific, polysyllabic, Latin-sounding chemical names on it that you don't understand, maybe don't eat it. If you don't understand what the ingredients are, don't eat it. If you didn't prep it yourself, why trust it? But this is interesting that you say you're concerned about the cognitive effects of a specific diet, and you should be. And it's not just high fructose corn syrup, but the nutrients you eat have a huge effect over the higher function of the brain. Man, back in how old was I? I was like 18 years old, and I decided, you know what? I am going to do a plant-based diet for a while, and I did a plant-based diet for about a year. I don't think I'd ever heard the word vegan back then. People just called it vegetarian. Vegetarian didn't mean you also ate eggs and milk and sometimes fish too. It just meant you ate a plant-based diet. And now they call that veganism, but veganism is more of an ideology, more of a socio-political ideology. Anyway, I'm getting backtracked here, but I did it for about a year, and it had a radical effect on my cognitive abilities in a very negative way, to be quite honest. Sorry, vegans, didn't work out for me. So I started doing some research and some studies into the effects on the brain of the nutrients that are common in animal-based foods. And boy, are they huge. Man, a lot of these nutrients have a huge effect on her brain function. Massive, massive. Take, for example, creatine. Okay, creatine phosphate specifically. It is a nutrient that we get primarily from meat, from animal flesh. What does that do for you? Well, any gym bro knows that it gives you more energy. It helps to recycle the ATP in your body and allow you to recover faster. But that's not all. It also helps govern higher function of the brain, specifically memory, which is why Alzheimer's patients have, in more recent times, been treated with creatine. But man, it's not just that. So my advice to you: study what is going into your mouth. Study the actual chemicals that are going into your mouth. I should probably say nutrients rather than chemicals, because chemicals kind of has a bad semantic drift. You don't want to put chemicals in your mouth. That's like bleach or something. Don't eat bleach. Don't eat Tide Pods. No, I'm talking about nutrients. Study the nutrients in your food and the effects they have on your brain. And if it's a negative one, don't eat it. If it's a positive one, eat more of it. All right, we got more questions. LK Void Punk says, Ramsey, my shoulder makes a weird cracking noise. Ooh, when I do pull ups. It wasn't happening before, and it hurts. Do you know what that might be, and should I be concerned? Well, I don't know what that is. I don't know if you've had an injury. Oh, you're from Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. Man, my good friend Nick is from Georgia. We did a podcast together. Super cool guy. Very interesting stories from the Republic of Georgia. Anyway, why is it clicking? Once in a while, joints crack. Sometimes it's harmless. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes there are underlying causes. If it is hurting you, if it feels like an injury, go get it checked out by a medical professional. If you just woke up feeling like, man, it feels kind of weird, maybe I slept wrong, there are a million underlying causes, man. Check your diet, check your movement. Maybe before you do any serious exercise or do some pull-ups, do some simple warm-ups first. This is something I wish I could time travel and tell my younger self, hey, before you do the heavy lifting, do some warm-ups first. Get warm up the joints. Essentially do less stressful versions of the exercise you're about to engage in. And that can help a lot. Like, I love doing squats. I do a lot of squats. And if I just loaded my max load on the bar and just started squatting cold, I would destroy my knees. I would absolutely destroy my knees. But start with body weight, exercises, simple movements, rotate the joints, do some squats and lunges without anything, warm up bar, put some plates on gradually until you work up to the working load, and then it works wonders. So work on your warm-ups, man. That can help. All right, what else do we have? Got another super chat from Global Product and Gaming Reviews. Man, so many super chats. Appreciate it. What do you think of other forms of kickboxing? Savat, Muay Boran, and Dutch kickboxing, and Bokator, Cambodian kickboxing. Please advise me. You know, my friend Antonio Grosefo did a podcast with him as an expert on Bokator. He spent quite a long time in Cambodia trying to do a cultural revival of the art of Bokator. There are a lot of martial arts out there that are kind of extinct, except for a few people, and sometimes we'll experience cultural revivals, like Bokator was one of those. And I mean, HEMA, for example, historical European martial arts, is very much a historical revival of martial arts. Taekyon, the Korean martial art that allegedly contributed to the development of Taekwondo, although not really, if you really study the history, is a historical revival. Many modern traditional martial arts are historical revivals. But Dutch kickboxing, man, it's fun to watch, but the hard sparring so many of those guys do, leads to very short careers. So mixed feelings about that. You get awesome fight shows, but not for very long. Savat, I like Savat. I've trained with a lot of Savateurs. Trained with a few of those guys. I shouldn't say a lot. I've trained with about three or four. Feels like I'm fighting four or five guys, but it's just one guy throwing a lot of fast combinations. But yeah, I like Savat. I like the training tendencies that good saboteurs have. Moy Baran, I think that's also one of those historical revival sort of things. It's a thing that exists, but how many Muay Baran competitions are there? I mean, literally, that means ancient martial arts in Thai. It's the ancient boxing of Thailand. So it literally is, as far as we understand how that word translates, a historical revival as opposed to a modern combat sport or even a living combat sport. So there are a lot of forms of kickboxing, and I've competed in a number of them. I competed in American kickboxing. That was my first professional combat sport. Then Muay Thai. I also competed in K1 rules kickboxing and Sanda, Chinese kickboxing. And as similar as they look from an outside observer, the slight changes in rules can make radically different sports out of these. So it is a really interesting exercise in how a minor rule change makes for a very different sport. A super chat from Shinobi who says, I love your videos. Can we see you spar in a mask? Huh. Well, you won't see me sparring until the gym opens up again. I was planning a video. Been collecting all the brown paper bags I could find because they're kind of rare over here in this part of the world. But I was planning a video and I was going to film it this month, but then the entire city of Shanghai got shut down. And the working title was Can You Fight Your Way Out of a Wet Paper Bag? Where I was going to fight with a wet paper bag over my head and spar like that and see what happened. I thought it would be kind of fun because I don't rely on my sight very much to fight. I in my last professional fight had my skull broken and I lost about half of my vision, serious damage to one of my eyes, and so yeah, I will spar blindfolded from time to time. Not so much the striking aspect, but MMA or grappling, I will spar blindfolded or with my eyes closed quite a bit. So fighting with a paper bag over my head is not a big stretch of the imagination. Anyway, maybe I'll still make that video. We'll see. Swarup Das wants to know how much money did I earn in total from your professional fights combined? Are you with the IRS, dude? Uh, I don't remember, to be honest. It was enough to pay the bills at the time. So, man, I didn't keep track in my mind like this much and then this much and then this much. It was enough to pay the bills. So sorry if that's a disappointing answer. All right, what else do we have? A couple more super chats. Ramsey Don'ty says, my enemy Ramsey Dewey, let's duel to the death. Well, Ramsey Don'ty, I got news for you. I'm a Dewey, not a Don'ty, so I can do, and you don't. So if we fight, it's not going to end well for you, brother. Shinobi sends in another super chat saying, I meant a balaclava type mask. That would be cool. I don't know what a balaclava is, so I probably don't have one. So if I don't have one, I can't spar with one. So sorry. Mr. Megadipper says, Ramsey, ¿cuál es tu opinión on the amazing Ramsey Dewey memes? Wow, we got a Spanglish question. What is my opinion on the amazing Ramsey Dewey memes? Or for those who only speak Spanish, ¿cuál es mi opinión de los memes? I don't know how to say memes in Spanish. Asombrosos. I wasn't aware that there are Ramsey Dewey memes. If you've got some, please send them my way. You can email me at ramseydewey@gmail.com. or put links in the comments sections of my videos. I am interested now. What are these Ramsey Dewey memes? We have another super chat from KillerBead01 who says, how would you train a fighter to go against Canelo? Well, if it's an MMA fight, pretty simple. Train him to take that dude down because he's a boxer. If he's a boxer, oh, man. Let's hope he's a bit of a prodigy, man. Let's hope he's a bit of a prodigy. Canelo doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, to be honest. He's one of those guys where you got to do the right thing and do it consistently and hope he fades before you do. And in most cases, he hasn't. Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a tough question. How would I train a fighter to go against Canelo? Canelo Alvarez. Thinking about all the fights I've seen where he has made a consistent mistake, and I don't know if he would make that mistake again, it would be overcommitting because he is a very powerful puncher, but it would be overcommitting and hoping to get him with a check hook, flank him from the side, something like that. But man, that's a tough fight. Global Products and Gaming Review sends in another super chat. I've been reading a new book called Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu. Are there martial arts positions that have therapeutic benefits? Huh. That's a good question. I've trained a bunch of people who felt like it did, like the idea of sparring for a lot of people is very therapeutic. Wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu. Experiencing this super manly thing with other men is something that a lot of men are just devoid of in their lives. They simply don't have it. Because for some reason, the people of the civilized worlds of today have decided, let's pathologize masculinity. Let's start calling it toxic. Let's start making men feel bad about being men. And this is absolute garbage, man. And so a lot of men, they have all their spaces taken away from them. They have all their options to hang out with the boys taken away from them, if you will. And so when they go to a jiu-jitsu class or a boxing gym or a wrestling room or something like that and participate in physical culture, man against man, brute force against brute force, technique against technique, cunning against cunning, all of these things together rolled into one, it is shocking to the system. They're like, I had no idea that life could be like this. This is awakening. This is fascinating. I've seen some videos of like these men's retreats that try to recreate all of these simple but super important things that wrestling or boxing does for men by having men do like these trust circles and make physical contact with each other. And a lot of them are kind of weird, but what they're getting at is men need to have a masculine space with each other. They need to participate in, basically they need to wrestle, man. They need to get down and dirty, and they need to roll. They need to spar. They need to match wits and physiques against each other. They need to get in the gym and lift with each other. You need to do man stuff sometimes, man. It's important. I know Harry's laughing at what I'm saying right now, but you know it's true, and you're probably thinking, the Greeks invented this whole concept. They probably did, man. But it's true. It's therapeutic. I haven't written a book about it, but maybe I should, because it's important stuff that our society needs. Because right now, a lot of folks out there are like hamsters in a wheel, running around on their wheel, trying to get that next sip of water from their sippy cup with the little metal thing that they lick out of, like, and And they're not living like men are supposed to. They're just not. They don't know how to, because all of the real male role models that you need are just being killed off systematically, whether literally or figuratively. Man, how many homes out there in America or the world at large are there without a father in the home? I grew up without a father in the home, and I'll tell you from personal experience, that's one of the worst things ever for the psyche of a little boy growing up, trying to become a man, because he doesn't know how to become a man. And so he's got to figure it out himself through trial and error, and it's some rough business, man. And not everybody is able to make it on their own. It is a tough thing trying to make it on your own. I should probably make a whole video dedicated to just this subject, because we have a bunch of other super chats. I would love to chat about this all day long, all night actually, because it's evening. But in the evening, that's when the internet works around here, so that's when we're doing the live chat. So Eat Godly sends in a super chat. Does a big head help you to take a punch? Don't take punches. I don't care how good you think your chin is. The more punches you take, the worse that chin's gonna get. Chin is a fancy word for brain damage. Don't take punches. We have another super chat from Lone Beaver. Hi Ramsey, is there a way I can reliably practice taking angles when training alone at home? I'm stuck moving backwards when sparring and I feel trapped. I have a video with about 15 different footwork patterns and how to practice them either with a partner or with a heavy bag or even just by yourself while shadowboxing to flank your opponent. Please go check that out. There's a whole playlist on footwork. It's titled something like 15 footwork patterns to flank your opponent. Go watch that one. That will be very helpful. You can practice that at home by yourself. It is very important to have the context of experience. But since you said when you spar, you find yourself moving backwards and feeling trapped, that means you do have the context of experience of sparring. So project that into the visualization when you do these footwork patterns. Next question. Super chat from Shinobi. Is there any way we contact you by email? Yes, you can. Email me at ramseydewey@gmail.com. If you got a super long question or some other concern you want to send me, email me, ramseydewey@gmail.com. What else? So many questions. Godly says, but you didn't answer. Does head size matter? Well, everything matters. Every minor difference in the body matters. If you've got a bigger head, it's a bigger target. But at the same time, it's not necessarily bad. Because if you got a bigger head, you probably have a thicker skull. Not necessarily, but you probably have a thicker skull, so you might be able to take punches a little better than somebody with a smaller, thinner skull. But there are too many variables there. For example, take your, what do we call these? The sinuses in your skull, these ones, the frontal sinuses. These are some of the most important skeletal structures for taking a punch, even though, like I said, you don't want to be taking a punch. If you have big, protruding frontal sinuses, that's probably a good sign, because that means you have deeper pockets right here, which can absorb more impact. If you have a really shallow set of frontal sinuses, then probably not so much. But again, there are tons of little variables here in this equation. But avoid the variables. Just don't take punches. Train your head movement. Train twisting your body as you're throwing punches, as you're moving. Don't be in the same place at the same time. Be like lightning, man. Lightning never strikes twice in the same place, as the old saying goes. I don't know if that's actually true, but when you're fighting in the stand-up game, always be moving. Never be in the same place twice. Right? Move to side, up and down. Even some little movement like that makes you so much harder to hit. It's shocking, man. Have I ever played soccer? Yeah, man, I used to live in Argentina. Of course I played soccer. It's like the national religion there. Didn't you know that? People think it's Catholicism, but the actual national religion of Argentina is soccer. Football. Am I good at it? Not nearly as good as the 10-year-old Argentinian kids playing on dirt pitches out there. Those kids were good, man. Chris S. says, Hi Ramsey, do you think a hobbyist training 2 to 3 times a week can train in MMA, or should he focus on either striking or grappling? Of course you can train in MMA. Of course you can. Now, that's a pretty simple question. Are you asking me, can you become UFC champion training 2 or 3 times a week? No, you got to give a much more concerted effort to be good at MMA. But can you train in it? Heck yeah, you can be a hobbyist, or you can even be a fairly serious amateur fighter training 2 or 3 times a week. That's fine. It really just is, depends on what your interests are. Are you interested in stand-up only fighting? Are you interested only in grappling and jiu-jitsu competitions? Okay, great, do one of those. But if your interest is mixed martial arts, train in that sport. I'm not going to make your mind up for you. Deepak wants to know my advice for shorter fighters for defense and counters in kickboxing. Dude, train with all kinds of people. All kinds of people, all shapes and all sizes, and that's going to teach you a heck of a lot more than this couple of words I'm going to give you right now. Train with all shapes and sizes of people. Train with people shorter than you, people taller than you, people who can outreach you, people who can't. It's going to help a lot. Because no two fighters are the same. No two short guys are the same. Jacob says, Ramsey, how do we combine weightlifting with training martial arts? Do them on different days, or one in the morning and the other in the evening? Whichever one gives you the best result. Kind of sounds like a cop-out answer, but whichever one you can work into your schedule, whichever one you can do, whichever one you will do, whichever one you will stick with. Now, when I was training at the JX Fight Club, I had a pretty busy class schedule. I was doing group classes every day. I was doing a bunch of private training. I was training fighters on top of that. I had a bunch of stuff going on. Not a lot of time for weightlifting, but I made it a point that on the afternoons, after the afternoon jiu-jitsu classes that I taught, I would do my heavy lifts on those days. And I was already tired from the jiu-jitsu. And when you're tired, you're not going to be doing your optimal lifts. You're not be, setting PRs or anything like that. But that was the time that I set for it. Was it optimal? It was optimal for me because that's what I could do. That's what I would do. That's what I actually did. And so I got a lot stronger doing that. Now, if you have a wide open schedule and you can do whatever you want whenever you want, and you have the option to do strength training when you're fresh, great, go do that. Next question. Shinobi sends me another super chat. I just sent you the email. I hope you get to read it. I'll be checking my email after this. Thanks for the questions, man. Appreciate it. So many questions, man. Ah, okay. Robert says, how do I balance training with my relationship? As someone who is training for BJJ competitions, I take it seriously. But my GF girlfriend, I guess, gets annoyed when I try to get in at least 4 classes a week. She gets annoyed. Man, I saw this interesting meme today where there's this guy and this girl, and the girl says, "It's me or jujitsu, pick one." And then the guy has this long monologue that he says to her. And I don't remember the exact wording to it, but essentially he states his case. He says, look, I love and appreciate you, and it is disconcerting to me that you would be willing to end our relationship over something that you know is important and constructive to me. And I thought, wow, this is a pretty deep meme, actually, because what he's doing is opening up a dialogue. And he essentially says, I feel hurt that you have offered this ultimatum, because that's not what a relationship should be. And I was like, man, for a meme that's supposed to be funny, this is shockingly wise. So you got to open up a dialogue, and not just a dialogue of, tell me what you want. Tell her what you want. In no uncertain terms, man. Jiu-jitsu is important to you. Your girlfriend is obviously important to you. Otherwise, she wouldn't be your girlfriend, right? And she's asking you, no, she's giving you ultimatums. Screw that. Don't take ultimatums. You make demands. Be a man, dude. That's what jiu-jitsu is all about anyway. I'm not saying disrespect your girlfriend. Obviously, you've got respect for her. Otherwise, she wouldn't be with you, right? But spell it out. Learn to be a communicator. A lot, I would say probably the overwhelming majority of relationship issues stem from poor communication, man. My wife was telling me earlier today, she said something like, man, you're just a naturally good communicator. And I said, no, I'm not. She's like, yes, you are. You're so good at talking to people. We go out in public and you strike up conversations with all kinds of people. And I was like, don't you remember when we were first married? I was nothing like that. Man, I have changed. This is a skill that took a lot of practice. Just being able to communicate ideas effectively to people. And honestly, I still feel like I suck at it. Like the ideas I want to communicate compared to how I actually communicate them is garbage by my own estimation, but I'm working at it, right? So my point is, you got to develop as a communicator. You got to open up a dialogue, express express what your values are. You value your girlfriend, you value jiu-jitsu. Let her know that you do not value the ultimatum. So, good luck to you, my friend. Looks like there's a discussion going on about boxing for boxing and boxing for MMA and how they're different things. Yeah, they are different things, which is why a lot of boxing fans see the punching in MMA and they're like, these guys suck at boxing. And some of them do. But some of them actually don't. Some MMA fighters are actually pretty good boxers, many of whom have also competed as professional boxers and done pretty well for themselves. But why does it look different? Because it's a different sport. There are a ton of other variables that don't exist in boxing that you've got to account for. I mean, think about the time that Conor McGregor boxed with blanking on his name, most famous boxer of our time. Floyd Mayweather, right? And Floyd outboxed him, no question about that. Floyd laid him out, right? But along the way, Conor McGregor was doing a bunch of stuff which in the sport of MMA would have been brilliant. He's doing slide binds and arm drags to get behind Mayweather and doing all this stuff that doesn't count in boxing. But if that's an MMA fight, man, it would have been the end of that fight in round one. But yeah, different sports, different strategies. What else do we have? Richard says, ¿Alguna vez has entrenado a alguien con discapacidad? Or in English, have I ever trained anyone with a disability? Yeah, I have. Um, a number of disabilities. I trained a guy who suffered from a stroke for a while, not very long. Um, he suffered a stroke, half of his body, like I don't remember if it was the right or the left side. It just didn't respond very well, and I was holding pads for him one day, and he fell, and he was very embarrassed by it, and I was like, dude, it's okay, I understand, and it really upset him a lot because he used to train in karate before his stroke, and apparently he was quite good at it, and he just wanted to have some semblance of strength again, some semblance of control over his body again, and man, that was a heart wrenching experience, to be honest. There was never this breakthrough like, and then he walked normally again. No, it didn't work that way. That's training isn't it's not a miracle. It's not a Jesus-like miracle like take up your bed and walk. It's a miracle of the mind if it's anything. Man, it's a miracle of the heart if it's anything. So, yeah, I've trained a few people with disabilities of various types. I mean, if you think about it, I am a person with disabilities. I'm missing half my vision, for one. And I get tons of questions like, man, I'm slightly nearsighted. Will I ever be able to learn how to fight? Of course you will, man. Of course you will. I mean, Michael Bisping, he is entertaining the idea of doing a fight with one of those Paul brothers. Is it Jake Paul? I think so. And he went on a bit of a rant on his channel recently. I like Michael Bisping, man. I like his channel. He's a good dude. And he brought up some salient points, which is essentially, all due respect to Jake Paul, he's going out there doing his thing, making money, bringing attention to the sport of boxing and all that. But at the same time, he's calling out people who are over the hill, retired, have one working eye, etc., half his size. What's up with that? How about have a boxing match with an actual boxer in your own weight class who isn't retired? There's an idea. Why not? Let's give that a try. But I think it's great that Michael Bisping is even entertaining this idea. Props to that man and his one working eye. We have a super chat from Scott McGregor who says, I do HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts, and it's lots of fun and good exercise. Yes, it is. But I'm developing lopsided musculature. Okay, that makes sense because you're probably working more on one side than the other, right? You hold a sword in one hand, shield in the other, or whatever weapons you're working on, right? I'm concerned it might have long-term consequences. And I'm doing free weights to compensate. Thoughts? Okay. Yeah. One thing that can help, especially if you're getting lopsided in one way, is do neutral grip deadlifts and do plenty of them, as opposed to mixed grip deadlifts, which are great for maxing out, and there's nothing wrong with doing a mixed lift deadlift, but if you feel like you are getting unbalanced, start doing lots of, what do we call that again? Deadlifts with your hands in the same direction. There we go. Why? Why? What is balance? Is imbalance. It all starts at your feet. Your feet and your capacity to bear weight on them and to stand up straight without tipping over on one side or having muscles be bigger on one side than the other. Deadlifts without a mixed grip consistently are a great option to do that. Pull-ups as well. But at the same time, as far as your strength training, as well as doing deadlifts and pull-ups, which are great exercises to develop both sides of the body equally, do not ignore exercises where you are using, let's say, it is so late, I'm blanking on all my technical jargon today, so I'm just going to spell it out for you in simple terms a child could understand. Exercises on one side of the body at a time are important. For example, lunges. You can't lunge on both legs at once. Do lunges on the right, do lunges on the left. Overhead presses with a dumbbell. Do them on the right, do them on the left. Right? Why? Because unilateral exercises. Thank you very much, the sad animations. Yes, unilateral exercises. Simple things like that you tend to forget. Pistol squats, that's another great example. Squats, awesome exercise. But a pistol squat, a one-legged squat, or, you can do variations of that if that's too hard. It's great stuff to help you develop. Why? Your core acts differently. Your muscles act very differently when you're doing unilateral exercise as opposed to on both sides, man. So don't neglect unilateral exercise, in addition to the squats and the pull-ups, which are great. Good luck to you. All right, what else do we have? Ali wants to know, is there any future for MMA in China? And are there promotions there, like the UFC and Bellator? Huge fan, by the way. Yes, absolutely. And the UFC certainly seems to think so. I mean, they opened up their second Performance Institute. I'm not talking about the UFC gyms. That's not what the Performance Institute is. They opened up their second Performance Institute in the world here in Shanghai. They've invested millions and millions of dollars in promoting the UFC in China. They've had events here in Shanghai and Guangzhou, and they had more events planned, but then we had this crazy lockdown and COVID crisis emerge. So probably in the future they'll get back to doing that. But yeah, there are a ton of MMA shows in China right now, a ton of them. I can't even name all the MMA shows that there are in China right now. I also work as a referee, so I work for a lot of different fight promotions, reffing fights, judging fights, etc. So there is no lack of MMA promotions here. What are the big ones, man? I don't even know what the biggest Chinese MMA promotion is right now. It seems to change from one year to the next. But if you don't know, when I first moved here to China in 2009, MMA was pretty much unheard of. It really was. I mean, there were a couple of guys doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu here in Shanghai. I mean, a couple of guys and a few students. There were a couple of guys over in Beijing, a couple of guys in Xi'an. There were a handful of guys who even knew what UFC stood for. And I opened up the first MMA gym in Shanghai. I helped pioneer the sport. Obviously, there are a bunch of other guys in this discussion that need their names mentioned. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of work. It has been a lot of work to get to the point where the average person knows what the UFC is, knows what MMA is, and doesn't just blink at you all weird when you say you're a combat sports coach. All right, what other questions do we have? If there was one exercise you could do for the rest of your life, what would it be? Deadlifts. It's my favorite exercise. It's the most bang for the buck. I love deadlifts. And, they make you stronger than any other single lift. So if it was just that, that's what I would do. Looking through these questions, there seems to be a discussion about a guy named Mike who smashed a guy on a plane. I don't know anything about this story. Which Mike are we talking about? There are a lot of Mikes out there in the world. It's a very common name. And a lot of them have been on planes. So I don't know. Mike Tyson? Icy Mike? Michael Jackson? He's dead, so probably not him. Death Billy says, I mean, if there were 3 bodyweight exercises you could do for the rest of your life, what would they be? Pull-ups, unless you mean bodyweight exercises that require zero equipment, and you do need a pull-up bar. You do need something solid to hold on to and hoist yourself up with to do pull-ups, but that would be number one, pull-ups for body weight exercises. After that, man, variations of the burpee, specifically the worm push up into the plyo jump burpee. That's an awesome one. And what else would it be? Ooh, the squat. Probably the squat or the jump squat. That's a good one. Those are all great exercises. If I could only do three. All right, guys, I'm going to take a couple of more questions. It's getting late over here in Shanghai. What other questions do you have? No love for the kettlebells, but he asked for body weight exercises. I do enjoy kettlebells. I did some kettlebell stuff today. Did some Turkish get-ups, actually. Those are good exercises. But is it a body weight exercise? Nope. Some boy says, why do so many kickboxers rely on the high guard for defense as opposed to head movement or footwork? Because it works. Head movement and footwork. So, let's compare and contrast kickboxing and boxing. In boxing, we are dealing with attacks coming in from here, with attacks coming in from here, with attacks coming in from here, with attacks coming from here. Okay? In kickboxing, we're dealing with all of this stuff, and then in addition to that, attacks coming in from all over the place as well with kicks. And so footwork and head movement in kickboxing is different. It is importantly different than the head movement and footwork for kickboxing. Sorry, for boxing. Got those two confused. As I said before, kickboxing and boxing are different things, but yeah, why do you see so many kickboxers shell up a lot, have this high guard, take a lot of stuff on their guard, block the hooks like this, block the head kicks like that, do their Dutch block for the body blocks, and catch the body kicks like that, and so on? Why are they so shelled up? Because it's effective. It's easy to learn. It's high percentage. And yeah, man, it works. Is it better to not get hit on the guard at all? Of course it is. As long as it puts you in a better position to finish the fight. So if you're just backing up against the ropes, covering up, no, that's no good. If you're blocking and then returning a shot, great. If you're slipping a punch and countering, great. If you catch a kick and boom, drop the other guy, great. But if you're not doing any of those things, fix that. Adrian wants to know how adding headgear, elbow pads, and shin guards into Muay Thai would change the game. You'd have to stop the match constantly to adjust the headgear if you're wearing headgear in Muay Thai because of the clinch game. As soon as you grab a collar tie, a meaningful collar tie, it's going to mess up the headgear. So, yeah, man. The elbow pads, if we're talking about amateur Muay Thai, I've seen amateur Thai boxing matches that use the elbow pads. Okay, it's not really game changing. In fact, half the time, what happens in competition, the elbow pad slides down the arm, up the arm, and then the actual bone, the olecranon of the elbow, isn't covered anymore, so it does just as much damage. They're ceremonial at best. What else? Shin guards. Amateur fights often have shin guards. Not always, but often. How does it change the game? It often gives people a false sense of confidence about getting their kicks checked. Whereas if you're not wearing the shin guards and you get one kick checked, that's a rude awakening that you need to change up your game plan. So a lot of amateurs or people who only have ever sparred with the shin guards on and have never had a kick checked without them. A lot of these guys have no clue how to set up a leg kick properly. They think they'll just throw it at the legs as hard and as fast as possible, and that's a recipe for dinged up shins or broken shins. So, man, Learn that lesson sooner rather than later. All right, what else do we have? Russian Undead says how to deal with existential fear and depression. I'm from Russia and I really don't know what to do with my life right now. Existential fear. Oh man, that's an interesting question. That's the reason, that's the word that stood out to me. I think about death constantly. Every time I lie down to go to sleep, I start thinking about death. Like, what if I died tonight? Wouldn't that be interesting? And I suppose a lot of people lie awake at night filled with existential dread, like, what if I died tonight? Oh, crap. Oh, that's a terrifying thought. Oh. But I think about death constantly. It's like one of my favorite things to think about, which sounds weird when you say it out loud, but my mom was the same way. We would discuss death all the time. How do you deal with existential fear? You you listen to the voice of God, man. That's what you do. You find God. Dude, you find Jesus in your life. Harry's laughing at me, but it's the truth, brother. It's the truth. How do you deal with existential fear? You come to terms with your existence. You learn who and what you really are. Because if you have no clue what you are or why you're here, then you will be filled with dread. Because you don't even know what you're for, man. You don't even know what you're for. Super chat from Shinobi. You look so good in compression shorts, King. Thanks, man. Get your own at xmarshall.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for a 10% discount. So, shameless plug aside, back to the existential dread question, man. Depression is highly variable, but existential dread, I can talk to you about that. I mean, I could talk to you about depression too. I've experienced depression. A lot of people have, and a lot of people say you should never talk about depression. You should never give advice to depressed people over the internet because they need to seek a medical professional, and maybe you do. Maybe you do, but at the same time, why not? Let's talk about our depression. Let's talk about our fears. Let's talk about all this stuff. And why not? So men are supposed to do as opposed to bottle it up inside and wait to die and then have a heart attack because you bottled up everything inside, man. Did you know the number one cause of death in men is heart failure? And the number two cause is stroke? All of y'all are out there worried about bad guys jumping out on the streets who are going to beat you up if you don't know the right martial arts move or carry the right self-defense weapon. Nah, you're going to die of a heart attack or a stroke, most of you. It's sad, but it's true. Does that depress you? If so, you got to find out who you are, man. Find your purpose. Find your meaning. Are you just some talking ape? Are you just some conglomeration of molecules and atoms floating around meaninglessly in space? Are you just some predetermined mess of algorithms and pre-decided responses? No, man. You're a child of God, and I'm sticking to it. But you got to find that out for yourself, otherwise that doesn't mean anything. All right. What other questions do you have? XONTYR, I don't know how to pronounce that. Long-time subscriber, frequent commenter says, there's something about the Geordies and their talk of death. Yeah, my mother was from Northern England, from that Geordie culture, yep. A friend of mine says, as soon as anyone in his family is past age 50, it becomes a high priority topic. How true, how true. Yeah, get comfortable talking about death, man. Some people aren't. A lot of people aren't. Over here in China, for example, I mentioned this before on a recent video, there's a huge superstition about the number 4. Because it sounds like the word for death in Chinese. A lot of words in Chinese sound very similar. It's just the character that's different. So many homonyms in Chinese. But there's this superstition about the number 4 because it sounds like the word for death. Right? Sun. I live on the 4th floor of my building. And I got this sweet discount because I live on the death floor, and nobody wants to live on the death floor except the crazy foreigners, right? So understandably, a lot of Chinese people are afraid of death. It doesn't really mesh with their culture, right? They want to live, they want to be prosperous, they don't want to die, right? And so they're afraid of the death floor, number 4, where I live. But yeah, man, you gotta get comfortable with death. X sewer or sower, I don't know how to pronounce that, says, how many techniques you should be learning at once because I want to learn too much at once and end up not learning almost anything. So less than that, first of all. Start focusing on one at a time. That's a pretty good place to start. Focus on one thing at a time. Sounds pretty simple, right? It is. It's the simplest way to learn. Man, if you try multitasking, yeah, that can be very confusing. The internet is a blessing and a curse as far as martial arts goes, because, man, you can scroll through social media, look through Instagram or something like that, like, oh, there's a cool jiu-jitsu technique. I want to learn that. And so you take a screen grab of it and you're like, I'm going to do this next time I'm in the gym. Then you scroll through more because you're bored and you see another one. Oh, there's another one. I want to learn that one. I'm going to do that one in the gym. And so you take a screen grab of it and you're like, I'm going to take this to the gym too. And before you know it, you've got 12 dozen Instagram flippy dippy jujitsu moves you want to learn and you don't learn any of them. Pick one of those and try them out. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, maybe move on to the next one until you find one that's more pick up and play. Now, obviously, techniques need to be drilled and practiced, and you got to do some live sparring, etc. But, man, one at a time. It's hard to beat. Hayden wants to know, how do you mix head movement into combos and make the movements random like Mike Tyson and remember it? Well, if it's random, you're not going to remember it because it's random. But I'll answer your question, how do you integrate head movement into your combinations? Move your head with your punches. For example, when you throw a jab, I'm going to slip to the right. Slipping to the right, I'm slightly twisting my body. A slip starts from the feet. It's not leaning. Don't try to move your head independently from the body. Head movement is a big misnomer. But we're going to slip to the right as we throw the jab. When we throw the straight right, we're going to slip to the left. We're going to twist the body to the left. Right? So what does that do? That moves our head off the line as we punch. Because if we stand in the center and throw our punches here, we are going to get hit with a counter punch. But if I move off the line as I throw my punches, I've reduced the likelihood of getting hit immediately by 50% if I do nothing else. And if I'm finished with a combination, what am I going to do? I'm going to change my level and move left, right, up, and down. So some really simple things you can do. Trace the number 7, or trace a triangle, or trace a circle, or trace a figure 8 with your body as you are throwing combinations, and mix it up a little bit. Don't always use the same one. Don't always trace the triangle. Right, down, up, left, right, down, up, left, because that becomes predictable. Mix it up a little bit, right? When you're done with the combination, one more time, change the level a little bit, move up and down, move left and right. As you are punching, move your head at the same time. That's very useful. You'll slip a lot of punches doing just that if you don't do anything else. What's wrong with my finger? Once again, I almost chopped it off with a meat cleaver while chopping onions. I'm okay, though. All right, I'm going to take Two more questions. What do you got? What do you got? Any tips for winding down after late training? Most of the classes in my gym are in the evening, and often I get some trouble getting to sleep after training late, says Jalmari. Okay. Any tips for winding down after late training? Stretch after you're done training. Do a 10-minute stretching session. Doesn't have to be super intense like a full yoga class, but do some full body stretches after training. This is super important. Do stretches right before you sleep as well. Your body is the most flexible, generally speaking, right before you sleep anyway. So stretch before you sleep, just like we were talking about with the cats at the beginning of this broadcast. We were talking about cats, right? What do cats do before they sleep? They stretch. When they wake up, they stretch and they move, right? What are they doing? They're winding down, they're prepping themselves, they're prepping their bodies to rest. And then when they wake up, they're prepping their bodies for highly tuned, explosive athletic movement, pouncing, climbing, running, sprinting, etc. To get out there and kill something like a mouse or a gopher. Man, cats murder a lot of animals. And you got to be highly athletic to do that as a cat. So why should you be any different? You're an animal too. You got a spine just like a cat. Yeah, man. So do some of that. Matthew Stamp says, hope you're okay in Shanghai. I'm okay. A lot of people here in the city are not doing so well, so pray for Shanghai, folks. If you are religious, if you believe in God, if you believe in the power of prayer, do some of that. It won't hurt. Ordinary Alien says, somebody said he traveled to more than 50 countries and China was the safest one. Your thoughts? Under normal circumstances, I would say, yeah. Under crazy COVID lockdown circumstances, who can say for sure? But under normal circumstances, yeah, China has extremely low levels of violent crime, like extremely low levels of violent crime. You can walk the streets of Shanghai at night. Well, not right now because it's locked down, but like I said, under normal circumstances, you can walk the streets at night. Nobody's going to bother you. Nobody's going to rob you. Nobody's going to point a gun at you. So ordinarily, super safe place. One more question. I'm trying to pick a good one here. Not a question, but Xewer says, I expected that the man who knows satanic hand gestures, spiritual punches, and ghost kicks would live on the death floor. References to some previous videos. If you haven't seen those, go check out my back catalog of videos. I appreciate your comments on those. But one more question. What is my favorite color? Red. Bright flaming red. That's my favorite color. And with that, we'll bring this live broadcast to an end. Hey, thank you for watching. If you have other questions and didn't get to watch the broadcast live, I'll check out your questions. I read your questions. Leave them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.